There was a stretch there, and you guys were so hot with the 36 points in the quarter there, and you're just running up and down the court. Was it as much fun as it looked like to people watching it?
Yes.
Yeah, it was pretty fun.
The Indiana Fever just torched the Dallas Wings, and Aliyah Boston and Caitlin Clark weren't holding anything back in their post-game interviews. Clark tied her career high with 5 steals, while Boston looked absolutely unstoppable. But here's the thing. Their comments about rookie sensation, Paige Buchers, might have just sparked something bigger than the win itself. What do you think separates a good rookie from a great one in the WNBA? Let's be real here. When the Indiana Fever dropped 101 points on the Dallas Wings, it wasn't just another regular season game. This was a statement, and Aliyah Boston and Caitlin Clark made sure everyone knew it. The post-game interviews were absolutely loaded with confidence, subtle shade, and some genuinely surprising admissions that have everyone talking.
Going up against one another in the WNBA. It is also only Caitlin Clark's 3rd game back from injury, and this season for the Indiana Fever has been a roller coaster ride. There has been ups, there has been downs, there has been times that we have been so confused on what is actually going on with this team. And I'll start off by saying I feel like this was one of their best games as far as playing Fever basketball.
First off, can we talk about how different this Fever team looks? Remember when everyone was questioning whether Clark could translate her college dominance to the professional level? Well, she's in her 2nd year now, and those questions seem laughably outdated. The woman just dished out 13 assists while tying her career high with 5 steals. But here's where it gets interesting. Clark wasn't even satisfied with her performance.
Caitlin, I believe you hit the first shot you took today, kind of deep sigh of relief, but what is it like to get out of the shooting slump, but also beyond that, just see the playmaking overall from you down the line, so you threw out your entire team, 30 assists tonight?
Yeah, I mean, I still probably didn't shoot it as good as I would have liked, but I feel like it's coming. I'm just trying to continue to get my legs under me, and like I said pregame, like I feel like I'm a couple shots away from like having a really good game. So
I still probably didn't shoot it as good as I would have liked, Clark said with that trademark confidence that either inspires you or makes you want to roll your eyes. Only someone shooting at an elite level would complain about not shooting well enough after contributing to a 30-assist team performance. The audacity is actually refreshing in a league where players often downplay their abilities.
Like having a really good game. So, but I mean, I thought my playmaking was really good. There was, no reason for me to really shoot that much. I thought, like, you look at the box, like 12 shot attempts, 11, 9, 8, 7, 6, like just very balanced, and people executed. And when we have 5 people in double figures, like I feel like we're going to be pretty hard to beat. Like it would take a lot for a team to beat us, and I think we were just kind of firing on all cylinders, moving the ball well, getting to the next action, played out a pick and roll well, and then.
But Clark's honesty about her shooting reveals something deeper about this Fever squad. They're not just winning games, they're building something sustainable. When your star player is more focused on team assists than personal shooting percentages, you know the culture has shifted dramatically from where this franchise was just 2 seasons ago.
Kind of Aliyah, off that point, where have you seen, especially the second half, the last game, going into such a strong first half tonight, and then you're able to keep your foot on the gas? Where do you feel like the biggest change, or I guess change, has been to really be so dominant and consistent offensively as a group?
Honestly, I think it starts on the defensive end. We talk about that all the time, just making sure that we get stops, because we like to play fast, we like to get the ball up and go in transition, and so we knew that we just had to make sure that we were focused on that end and make sure that we're connected on the defensive end, and then that sparks our offense and we're good to go.
Boston's response to questions about looking stronger and faster was pure gold. "I don't think so," she said, as if casually dismissing the obvious physical transformation everyone can see. The woman is clearly in the best shape of her professional career, moving like someone who spent the entire offseason preparing for exactly this moment, and she's acting like it's no big deal. That's the kind of quiet confidence that championship teams are built on.
You look a lot stronger. You've had a couple strong seasons, but is there some kind of secret sauce to your success right now? You just look a lot stronger and a lot faster.
No, I don't think so. I think just making sure that I was ready to come in. Obviously, playing with the sprinter over here, she likes to get up and down. I think going into this year, I knew that a lot better than coming into my last year. And so for me, I think I was just prepared and ready to go.
The chemistry between Boston and Clark has reached a level that's honestly scary for the rest of the league. When Clark mentioned that there was no reason for me to really shoot that much because of how balanced the scoring was, she wasn't just talking about good basketball. She was describing a team that has figured out how to make each other better. 12 shot attempts for Clark in a game where she dominated? That's not a player being passive. That's a player who understands that winning matters more than individual statistics. But let's address the elephant in the room, their comments about Paige Bueckers. Coach Stephanie White's assessment of the rookie was dripping with the kind of respectful acknowledgement that veteran teams give to emerging threats. She just stays neutral, she doesn't get rushed, White said, which sounds like praise, but also reads like a scouting report being shared with the world. The interesting part is how Clark and Boston handled questions about facing Bueckers. There was no dismissive attitude, no veteran hazing energy. Instead, they offered the kind of measured respect that suggests they see Bueckers as someone who could genuinely challenge their position in the league hierarchy. That's either very mature or very calculated, and honestly, it might be both.
Talk so much about your offense and playmaking and shot making, but defensively, tied your career out with 5 steals tonight. How do you think that first one, though, I think it might have been on Paige, but just coming across court, you get it, and how do you think that set the tone for the rest of the defense throughout the game?
Yeah, well, I knew my team was ready a trap beat on the sideline, so kind of just made a read. I saw she was going to throw it to her post player and was able to get my hand on it and then got a few deflections out of guard-to-guard switches. So I think just being active, I can be a really good defender when I choose to and when I work really hard on it and not conserve energy. So proud of myself in that regard, and I think that probably motivates our offense. When I bring a tenacity on the defensive end, I think it really helps our offense go. And
Clark's defensive performance deserves its own conversation because it directly addresses one of the biggest criticisms of her game. 5 steals and 7 deflections aren't accident numbers. They represent a player who has clearly worked on the aspects of her game that skeptics love to attack. I can be a really good defender when I choose to and when I work really hard on it, Clark admitted, which is basically saying she's been coasting defensively in previous games. The honesty is brutal and refreshing simultaneously. The fact that Clark acknowledged she sometimes conserves energy on defense reveals a level of game management that most second-year players haven't developed yet. She's essentially admitting to picking and choosing when to lock in defensively, which sounds terrible until you realize it means she's capable of elite defense when the situation demands it. That's not a weakness. That's strategic basketball intelligence. Boston's comments about the team's defensive philosophy starting everything else were particularly telling. It starts on the defensive end, she said, which sounds like standard coach speak until you realize this team just forced 23 points off turnovers. They're not just talking about defense being important, they're actively using it as their primary offensive weapon.
Caitlin, just 13 assists for you and then 30 assists as an entire team. Just what was working so well with you seeing the floor and just the entire team?
Yeah, 30 assists on 40 made shots is about as good as it's going to get. That's really impressive, and I think it just shows the selflessness of this group is you're just trying to find your teammate, trying to get to the next action, trying to give up a good shot for a great shot, and just really proud of this group of how we share the ball, and makes us really hard to guard, like I've said. So that's something that Steph always preaches and something she always talks about is, how many of our field goals are assisted. So we're always looking for high numbers there, and 30 on 40 made field goals is
The 30 assists on 40 made field goals statistic that everyone keeps mentioning isn't just impressive, it's historically good. Teams that move the ball like that don't just win games, they change how opponents have to prepare for them. When 5 players score in double figures, you can't game plan around stopping 1 or 2 players. You have to beat an entire system, and most teams simply aren't equipped for that challenge. What's fascinating about this Fever team is how they've managed to build this level of chemistry without extensive practice time together. White mentioned they've only had 3 games with their full roster and no real practice, which makes their performance even more impressive. Either they're naturally gifted at playing together, or the individual basketball IQ on this roster is significantly higher than most people realized. Clark's admission that she feels like she's a couple shots away from having a really good game is either concerning or terrifying, depending on your perspective. If this performance, 13 assists, 5 steals, 7 deflection net, and efficient shooting, represents Clark not playing at her best, what exactly does her ceiling look like? The scary part is that she seems to genuinely believe she has another level to reach. Boston's transformation deserves more attention than it's getting. The woman looks like she spent the offseason training with someone who understood exactly what kind of physical demands Clark's pace would place on her teammates. Her conditioning and explosiveness are noticeably improved, and she's carrying herself with the confidence of someone who knows she can keep up with any pace the game demands. The way both players handled questions about maintaining leads and finishing games suggests they've learned from previous struggles. White's emphasis on building consistency and stacking good performances indicates this team understands they're still in a development phase, even while dominating opponents. That kind of self-awareness usually leads to continued improvement rather than complacency. Their approach to talking about Buchers was particularly smart. Instead of dismissing her or downplaying her impact, they acknowledged her abilities while subtly positioning themselves as the standard she's chasing. It's fun to watch, not as an opponent on the other sideline, White said, which manages to be complimentary while also asserting that they're the team everyone else is trying to beat. The broader implications of this performance in these interviews extend beyond just one game. This Fever team is positioning itself as a legitimate championship contender, and they're doing it with the kind of confidence that suggests they believe their own hype. When Clark talks about teams needing a lot to beat them when they have 5 players in double figures, she's not just being confident, she's stating what she believes is a mathematical reality. Boston's evolution from promising young player to a legitimate star has been one of the most underrated storylines in the league. Her ability to adapt her game to complement Clark's style while maintaining her own identity as a dominant post presence has been crucial to their success. The fact that she's doing it while looking stronger and faster than ever suggests she's approaching her prime at exactly the right time. The defensive improvements from both players represent the kind of two-way development that separates good teams from championship teams. Clark's willingness to acknowledge her previous defensive limitations while demonstrating improvement shows a maturity that should concern every other team in the league. Boston's emphasis on defense sparking offense reveals a team philosophy that prioritizes winning over individual statistics. Looking at how they handled this win and these interviews, it's clear that both Boston and Clark understand the bigger picture. They're not just trying to win games, they're trying to establish a culture and identity that can sustain success over multiple seasons. The way they talked about team basketball, defensive intensity, and continuous improvement suggests they're thinking like champions, not just talented players having a good stretch. The respect they showed Buchers while maintaining confidence in their own abilities demonstrates the kind of competitive intelligence that championship teams possess. They're not threatened by emerging talent. They're using it as motivation to continue improving their own games. That mindset typically leads to sustained excellence rather than brief periods of success. What's particularly interesting is how both players have embraced their roles as leaders while still acknowledging areas for improvement. Clark's comment about being a couple shots away from her best game shows someone who's never satisfied with current performance levels. Boston's casual dismissal of obvious physical improvements suggests someone who's always expecting to get better, rather than celebrating current achievements. The chemistry these two have developed is genuinely remarkable, considering how different their playing styles seemed initially. Clark's pace and Boston's power could have clashed, but instead, they've created a complementary dynamic that makes both players more effective. Boston's improved conditioning allows her to keep up with Clark's tempo, while Clark's playmaking creates easier scoring opportunities for Boston in the post. Their comments about the team's 75% assist rate reveal a basketball philosophy that prioritizes team success over individual recognition. In an era where social media highlights and personal branding often take precedence, this Fever team seems genuinely committed to winning through collective excellence. That's either refreshing authenticity or brilliant marketing, and honestly, it doesn't matter which one it is if they keep winning games. The way they discuss their defensive performance shows a team that understands championship-level basketball requires excellence on both ends of the floor. Clark's 5 steals weren't just about individual effort, they were about understanding team defensive concepts and executing them at the right moments. Boston's emphasis on defense creating offense shows a player who understands how championship teams actually function. Coach White's comments about Buchers being fun to watch, not as an opponent, reveal the confidence this organization has developed. They're not worried about individual players anymore. They're focused on team systems and sustained excellence. That kind of organizational confidence usually indicates a franchise that's built something sustainable rather than just riding temporary success. The fact that they maintained their lead throughout the game after building it in the second quarter represents growth from previous seasons when this team struggled with consistency. Clark and Boston both acknowledge this improvement while emphasizing that maintaining leads isn't enough. They want to continue expanding them. That mentality separates teams that make the playoffs from teams that win championships. Their discussion of ball movement and unselfishness reveals a team culture that has completely transformed from just 2 years ago. When Clark talks about giving up a good shot for a great shot, she's describing the kind of basketball intelligence that takes most teams years to develop. The fact that they're doing it in their second season together suggests they have a natural chemistry that can't be taught. Boston's physical transformation isn't just about looking stronger. It's about being able to execute their system at the pace Clark demands. Her improved explosiveness and conditioning allow the team to play the kind of transition basketball that creates easy scoring opportunities. When she says she was prepared and ready to go for Clark's pace, she's describing months of preparation that most fans never see. The defensive identity they've developed around forcing turnovers and creating transition opportunities represents a complete philosophical shift for this franchise. Instead of trying to slow down games and grind out victories, they're using their superior conditioning and basketball IQ to create chaos for opponents. That approach requires incredible trust between teammates and represents months of preparation. Clark's honesty about sometimes conserving energy reveals a player who's learned to manage her impact throughout entire games, rather than just individual moments. That kind of game management usually takes veterans years to develop, but she's already thinking about basketball at that level in her second professional season. It's either natural intelligence or incredible coaching, and probably both. The way they handled questions about Bokers shows a team that's confident enough in their own abilities to acknowledge other talented players without feeling threatened. That kind of security usually indicates a group that's built something sustainable rather than just having temporary success. They're not worried about individual matchups because they trust their system and their preparation. The psychological aspect of their post-game comments shouldn't be overlooked either. When Clark casually mentions being capable of elite defense, when I choose to, she's sending a message to every opponent that they haven't seen her best effort yet. That's the kind of mental warfare that championship level players engage in without even realizing it. She's essentially telling the league that her current level of play isn't her ceiling. Boston's transformation narrative is particularly compelling because it represents the evolution of a player who is already considered elite. The fact that she's still finding ways to improve her conditioning and explosiveness in year 3 of her professional career suggests a work ethic that most players don't possess. Her casual dismissal of obvious improvements indicates someone who expects excellence from herself rather than being surprised by it. The timing of this performance and these interviews couldn't be better for the Fever's championship aspirations. They're peaking at exactly the right moment, while simultaneously showing that they believe they have another level to reach. The combination of current excellence and future potential is what separates championship teams from playoff teams. They're not just playing well, they're playing well while genuinely believing their best basketball is still ahead of them. Boston and Clark aren't just winning games, they're redefining what this Fever franchise can become. Their confidence, chemistry, and competitive intelligence suggest this is just the beginning of something special. What did you think of their post-game comments? Drop your thoughts below, smash that like button, and subscribe for more WNBA content that goes beyond the highlights.